Have you ever wondered how you can get to be a podcast guest on multiple podcasts without having to be this amazing celebrity person that everybody's seeking out? Well, on today's video, I'm telling you how I did just that and how I'm on track, actually way ahead of my goal to be on 52 podcasts this year. So let's dive in, and I'm going to give you all my tips and tricks for landing some podcast guest opportunities. Let's go. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Nicole Saunders, and I am a personality and strengths-based business coach for female identifying entrepreneurs. And that's a lot to say that I basically help people take their innate strengths and look at their MBTI and their Enneagram and help them make a strategic roadmap to get to where they want to go. Or if you have been in this entrepreneur game for quite a while, it might be time to recalibrate and evaluate and see, did you miss the you in your business? Have you lost that? So let's get it back in there. But I am so happy y'all are here. I publish videos each and every week here on this channel. So make sure you subscribe so you can continue keeping up with me here, because I publish videos that are going to help you grow your business. Just like today, we are talking all things about how to be a podcast guest. And guess what? I don't even have my own podcast, y'all. So I'm giving you all my tips and tricks and all the things. So first thing first, make sure you make a goal that is reasonable and attainable to you. So here's what I mean by that. When I started getting on Clubhouse, I was in some room, I don't even know what it was about, but I heard a guy say, I made a goal last year to be on 100 podcasts, and I did it. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. 100 podcasts. Wow, that sounds like a lot. I had only been on like 2 or 3 podcasts at that point in my entire life as a guest. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with 52. That's one a week. I think that's obtainable. I think I can do that. And I just made that goal, and I started to set out to reach it. And each and every week I've made intentions to find places where I can connect with podcasters, especially because I don't have a podcast. I don't want a podcast right now because I hate editing audio only stuff. I've had a podcast in the past with my husband, but then we started a YouTube channel, which you can go check out. It is our Leisure and Leashes. It's all about hiking with dogs and just being in the outdoors and having fun, and it's just a fun project. So I will link to that in the description below. But you don't have to have a podcast to be a podcast guest. You just have to have a really good story. Coffee break. So I mentioned you have to have a really good story. Here's the other thing. You need to be an expert and really hone in on one thing. Don't go and pitch people that have podcasts or their team or whatever and say, I can talk about this. Like, yeah, I could talk about how I make YouTube videos. I could talk about ClickUp. I could talk about Flowdesk. I could talk about narcolepsy, grief, being an introvert, extrovert, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs. I could talk about plants. I could talk about reading fantasy romance. I could talk about marrying my next door neighbor. I could talk about leaving corporate, working in higher education. I could talk about a lot of things. But if I pitched somebody and was like, I can talk about all of these things, they would be like, well, I don't know what would be best for my audience. I don't know. What are you really an expert in? So you need to hone in on your message. Make sure that you are pitching them on one thing. So when I talk to people, I'm typically pitching female entrepreneurs who have podcasts, or their podcasts are niched in that female entrepreneur space. So I want to share my story of how I pivoted my business, or I want to share how I left corporate, or my third and favorite option, and this is the one I share the most often, is how people can use their personality and their strengths in their business to recalibrate and grow their business instead of trying to chase and do what everybody else is freaking doing on this earth. So it is something that I think resonates with a lot of audiences. So if you have a story to share and you have nailed down your pitch and know which one you want to send to people, this video is going to help you figure out the rest of the steps and places that you can find potential podcasts that you can be on. As y'all know, I'm obsessed with Clubhouse. I've been a little less active than normal recently, but Clubhouse is the number one way you can find podcasts that you can be a guest on. I have found probably 25 of the 27 podcasts that I've scheduled thus far just on Clubhouse. So what I do is I follow people who are podcasters or in the podcasting industry, and I go into their rooms. And I also host rooms. Like, that's how I got on the Thrive blog podcast with Bree. And y'all, it was because I was hosting a room and she said, "Oh, I love your energy. I need you to be on my podcast." And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm kind of fangirling. But the thing is, when you go in these Clubhouse rooms, you are making an impression, and because it's audio only and people can only hear your voice and you're bringing that energy, they know if you're going to be a good podcaster or not. If you go on there and you're like, "Oh, I'm just here. I have a Ben Stein voice. I want to be on a podcast, but I don't know what to talk about." Nobody's going to want you on their podcast because you're not bringing that energy and you're not being excited about what you do and who you serve and all of those things. Another part of Clubhouse is I go into networking rooms, and anytime I'm in a networking room, I talk about one of my non-monetary goals. And right now, the business non-monetary goals. So I talk about either podcasting or YouTubing. And so when I talk about I want to be a podcast guest, I say, "Hey, I'm Nicole. I would love to be a guest on your podcast if it's the right fit for your audience." And I don't go and hound people about it. Yeah, I will follow up with a DM on Instagram and let them know, "Hey, I'm Nicole from the Clubhouse room where we were just talking." But anyways, I also let them know that I can talk about whatever it is. I pick one of my 3 main pillars. And typically I'm picking the how to use personalities and strengths, or Myers-Briggs and Enneagram, to grow your business and find the you and bring the you back to your business. And that has been really cool to just see people embrace that, because there's not a lot of people talking about how you need to focus on you and your personality in your business. So that's part 1 of Clubhouse. Part 2 is I make sure that I'm in the consistent podcasting rooms. I know there is one on Wednesdays at 11 Eastern. Katie Brinkley is a good person to follow on there. She is constantly hosting rooms about podcasting. Her and Allison and Brent host that room. There's also one on Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Saturdays, I can't remember the time. When you leave a comment, I will make sure to give you the times for those podcasting rooms if you are looking to use Clubhouse to grow your podcast guesting experience. But here's the thing, y'all. You need to put yourself out there. You can't just sit and think people are going to come and find you. They might, but if you aren't hugely known, if you're not visible enough, people aren't going to come hunt you. They see people. So you need to be active and visible and attract people to you. That is one way that you're going to help people find you, and they're going to want you on their podcast. Another tool I like to use to find guest opportunities for podcasting is an app called Potit. Well, it might not be an app, but it is a website where you can subscribe. I have the free version, and I've still found opportunities that way. You can pitch yourself as a guest on a lot of different places. You can find them by niche. You can share your story. You can apply. You don't even have to apply. You can put out this call and people can come find you. But it is a tool that is so helpful because you can see exactly what they need, exactly what they're looking for, and connect with them that way. I've had quite a few people reach out to me on Potit. I will link to that in the description below, but Potit is a really cool tool to use to find podcasts you might not have even ever heard of. And sometimes the thing, you might not be on these number 1 across business, number 1 across this, or whatever industry you're in, and that's okay. It's about getting the experience and being able to share your story. And people that put their time into producing their own podcast, they're not just putting it out for whatever reason. They're putting it out because they have an audience and they want to impact them. And if you get on their podcast as a guest, you can also impact their audience. So it's a no-brainer. I don't care if people have 5 listeners or 5,000. I want